Good evening and welcome to the Greg Thompson Football Show. We are here to give you the quick whip around the league in this week 3 halftime of Sunday Night Football. We will go through each of the games. So without further ado, we will jump right in. And on Thursday night, I won't lie, I was kind of rooting for the Patriots to hang with the Jets just because it really would have hurt the Jets' feelings way more than the Patriots draft stock or anything like that. But this one went about as we expected preseason. I think coming into the week, a lot of people started to think that, hey, maybe the Patriots were going to hang here. They look pretty tough. They beat Cincinnati. They were hanging in, each game. The Jets looked pretty rough against San Francisco, then barely got by the Titans. This one was a throttling, 400 total yards to 139. This was a dominant game. This was basically what the Jets we thought could look like if they were healthy. This was a game where I think on their defense they had 7 sacks, pretty crazy. So the New England offensive line issues, all the different pieces that go along with it, it's something where it's exactly what everybody was concerned with. So we'll see what comes of it here, but this is what a healthy Jets team looks like, and a healthy Jets team has to be taken seriously, although they already got one of their first dings. Right tackle Morgan Moses went out, and their first-round pick, Olufashanu, had to come in the game, so we'll see how that looks. But right now, this is a team to be taken seriously. While the Jets are healthy, I think they can hang with anybody. In a game that people thought might take us back a few decades in football, actually ended up being reasonably entertaining. The Steelers held on at home with the Chargers early on. The Chargers looked pretty good. They were up 10-7 at one point, had possession in the second half multiple times to be able to take more command, but this Pittsburgh defense is for real. Quentin Johnston had another game with a touchdown. I think he's got 4 touchdowns in 3 games. It's wild. And all the different things going on. It actually, J.K. Dobbins was a little bit more impactful than what he was. I actually did sit him in multiple fantasy leagues because that Pittsburgh defense terrifies me, and rightfully so. They looked fantastic. This Pittsburgh defense is going to keep them in a ton of games. I don't know how many games Justin Fields is going to win them, but he has looked more controllable and functional than what I was prepared for. So I'm open to Pittsburgh being a little bit more of a thing than I expected. They've obviously also won some ugly games here and only have 3 touchdowns in 3 games, so we'll see how sustainable it is, but this defense is going to give them a shot. One of the bigger surprises today, the Minnesota Vikings absolutely took it to the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud had a NFL record, but one of the longest interception list streaks in the NFL, one of the longest ones to open a career. He had 2 today. One of them was really bad. Minnesota, Brian Flores had CJ Stroud seeing ghosts, and that's something we haven't seen so far. CJ Stroud's been very stoic, very controlled, and Brian Flores was absolutely in his head in this game. So shout out to the Vikings. Sam Darnold looked pretty darn good. 4 touchdowns on the day, but I think this was more about their defense. Their offense obviously continued to make plays. Jalen Naylor is a guy that I didn't have on my radar here. You can see, the yardage, the time of possession, the first downs. This was not a 34-7 game between the lines. It was just the timing of the plays on defense, getting those turnovers, getting timely turnovers, and ultimately hitting CJ Stroud. 5 sacks, 8 more quarterback hits beyond that. So 13 times getting to CJ Stroud. And maybe the first time we've seen real chinks in the armor of a guy who's looked pretty amazing to start his NFL career. The unbelievable New Orleans Saints finally came back down to earth a little bit. No touchdowns today. They did have 1 touchdown late to Chris Olave. They went for 2 and didn't get it. So that was where the 12 points came from. But finally showed to be human. Philadelphia's defense looked pretty good. For some reason, New Orleans just forgot Dallas Goedert was on the field, 10 catches for 170 yards. Saquon Barkley continues to look like maybe the most talented football player in the NFL. He is just unbelievable for Philadelphia. 17 carries for 147 yards, 2 touchdowns, contributed some more in the pass game. Another 4 catches receiving. So I will say, I think Philadelphia's ceiling is limited because of Jalen Hurts. He just does not look like the same player we saw in that Super Bowl run. Again, they put up 15 points here today, all in the fourth quarter. So this is not something that was some offensive performance by the Eagles, but they pulled out the win. Both teams are now 2-1, and they kind of righted the ship for where they were. I mentioned earlier that Houston, Minnesota might have been the biggest surprise of the day, and that's because my biggest surprise was the Denver Broncos took it to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bo Nix looked pretty good, especially running the ball. They don't have it here. He wasn't the top rusher there, but 9 for 47 and a touchdown. Also had multiple first downs that he picked up with his legs, and most importantly, he wasn't great passing the ball. He wasn't amazing, but he didn't put the ball in harm's way. He didn't do what Will Levis has done in some of those Tennessee games. We'll get to that again in a minute here. But shout out to Denver for playing tough, being able to get a win here. Cortland Sutton looked really good in this game. Tampa Bay, I think, is a good team, and someone's got to win that NFC South. Everybody watching here with the Falcons and Chiefs on Sunday night, but this is one where I think I don't know how anyone can be surviving in a survivor pool. So you had New England beating Cincinnati in week 1. You had Oakland or Las Vegas beating Baltimore in week 2, and now Denver beating Tampa in week 3. I don't know how anybody's still left in those survivor pools. It's madness. So I mentioned the Will Levis, 2 more interceptions for Levis. Anytime your head coach after the 3rd game of the season has to confirm that he's sticking with you as your quarterback, you know you've done some things wrong. So I don't think Tennessee has any real options, nothing of significant investment on their depth chart. Maybe they'd have to call Ryan Tannehill to come back. But it's weird because I feel like this Tennessee team is talented. I think there's talent on this roster. They have talent in their receiving core. Their defense has names all across it. Their secondary has Aaron had a really good tweet earlier today that, for all the time and energy we spend on it, no one knows anything about NFL football. And the more we think we know, the more wrong we are. It's just crazy how this league goes. And Malik Willis deserves a lot of credit for today. 13 of 19 for 202. So you're talking for over 10 yards per attempt, nearly 20 yards per completion, ran for another 73 and a touchdown. Last week, they kind of protected him from himself. This week, Malik Willis was a part of winning this game. Like, he contributed significantly to Green Bay winning this game. And that's really credit to Matt LaFleur, the fact that he's been able to put him in that situation, because he did not look like capable of that in these previous weeks, or previous seasons even. Another one, I feel bad for my wife, for my father-in-law, for most of my college friends. Cleveland lost to the Giants, the New York Football Giants, the winless lost to the first team in NFL history to score 3 touchdowns, not allow a touchdown, and to lose in regulation last week to the Washington Commanders Giants. I don't get it. Like, they got a gift. New York fumbled the opening kickoff, and Cleveland threw a touchdown pass on the first play. They were up 7-0. How long was the time of possession? 11 seconds into the game. They didn't get possession. New York started with the ball, and Cleveland was winning 7-0, 11 seconds into the game, and they lost. It's just you were a touchdown favorite and got gifted a literal additional touchdown, and you lost to the New York Football Giants. So the only grace I will give them is Aaron. Malik Neighbors is a stud. That dude is an absolute stud. He's fun. He is appointment television. That dude is a really, really fun player. And thankfully is able to make use of Daniel Jones. He didn't have 63% of the targets this week. He reduced that down to only like 40% of the targets this week. So, but if Daniel Jones has a game plan of throw the ball to number 1, that's going to work. That's going to get it there to be able to do it. So David in here saying, yeah, Malik Neighbors is legitimately good enough to save jobs for the Giants. He really might be. I was pretty sure, I still am pretty sure Joe Shane is going to be part of the Bills front office staff next season. But we'll see. Maybe this buys them a little bit of time. In a game that coming into the season was probably one of the most anticipated young quarterback matchups of the year. Caleb Caleb Williams versus Anthony Richardson turned into kind of a head-scratching question mark. Anthony Richardson has still yet to exceed 50% completion percentage. He had his best game of the season because it was at 50%, 10 of 20, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's too erratic. He's too inaccurate. He's going to need to take all the things that non-Bills fans told us Bills fans about our like copium and hope and wish casting about Josh Allen making unprecedented leaps and bounds in accuracy. That's literally what Anthony Richardson's going to have to do, because right now this is not sustainable. He cannot be a starting quarterback with this level of just complete, it's not even variance. It's simply unsustainable football. You cannot complete drives with his lack of accuracy. Caleb Williams, there's a lot of garbage time numbers in here. 363 yards, 2 touchdowns. There's a lot of garbage time in there. He did not look great again. I'm still holding out hope because it's a travesty, the offensive line they put in front of him. He's a talented player. I think he's got a future in this league. And is going to be maybe not the generational player we thought he was going to be, but is still going to be a good player. But that man's running for his life like 3/4 of the game. So I'm going to give him a little bit of grace here. I don't think that's on him and his performance, but man, I think I'm ready to. I got the tweet worked up here that I might have been wrong on the potential ceiling for Anthony Richardson, because right now I need to readjust those expectations. Talk about shocker. Apparently it was Bryce Young, because Andy Dalton came in and was the first quarterback on the season to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. No other quarterback had thrown for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Andy Dalton walks in the door with that surrounding cast and immediately looked good. The Panthers won 36-22. I'm one of many, many people who had picked up the Raiders defense in fantasy leagues to play, because of course you do, because it's the Panthers. They got me like -2 points in some of my leagues. The Panthers apparently are good. And, Deontay Johnson was a real football player when you have a real quarterback. 8 catches for 122 yards. Adam Thielen, old man Thielen, caught a touchdown. Chuba Hubbard looked good because the defense couldn't stack the box. And the Raiders, for all their flaws, like they've got some studs on defense. Like they've got, you're talking about, Max Crosby and our friend from Miami going over there, and look along this. Christian Wilkins way down here where you're looking for his name in the box score. I was shocked by this. I thought they were going to get this win, but the Panthers, good for them. Matter of fact, I got to look like who are the winless teams now, because the Giants won. Cincinnati going against Washington is still winless. Jacksonville going against Buffalo. Tennessee, the fact that Tennessee is winless and Carolina and the Giants have a win is hysterical. But yeah, right now Tennessee, the number 1 pick in the draft, so good for them. All right, last couple of games here before we wrap things up here. I'm not gonna mock the Dolphins, because obviously this is to his injury, and that's a huge part of why their lack of production. Skylar Thompson is a very limited player. He got hurt during this game. That just completely neuters a ton of their offensive ability. But I gotta tell you, Tua doesn't play defense, and Seattle whipped the Dolphins on this game. Zach Charbonnet up and down the field, DK Metcalf, physically dominating their corners and their secondary. So the Dolphins obviously already lost some hope here with the Tua injury. We'll see whether he ever comes back or whether it's later this season. My gut is that he shouldn't, but that he's going to try to come back here. So we'll see where it goes. But obviously without him, this team is not functional. One of the most anticipated games of the day, our big matchup that Chris and I did in our preview during the week, all of a sudden was a blowout that the score now looks way closer than what it really was. Dallas scored 19 points in the fourth quarter. At one point in the fourth quarter, it was Baltimore 28, Dallas 6 in a complete blowout. And they let Dallas get back into it to where like they needed to convert to get the ball back, and Dallas almost got themselves back in this game. So I said in my preview that I wanted Baltimore to win. I did not want them coming in 0-3 when Buffalo plays them on the road next week. I wanted them to get a win here, and I kind of like the fact that they went up big and then let the Cowboys come back because of those seeds of doubt in their mind about all the blown 10-point leads. This would have been the worst one by far, to be up 28-6 and to blow that against a flawed Dallas team would have really hurt their psyche, and now those seeds are still floating around in there. So we'll see where that one goes. A fun game that maybe wasn't quite as fun as what people thought. Detroit and Arizona, I was hoping for more points. 33, you could have won a ton of money if you put a bet on under 33.5 points. You would have won $1 bajillion in this one. Detroit pulled out a lot of tricks. They ran a hook and ladder, multiple different spots, and their defense played pretty tough. That was the real key. They found a way to keep Kyler Murray in the pocket, and their biggest one is they controlled James Conner. James Conner, 9 carries for 17 yards. They couldn't get anything going besides Kyler Murray. So you take away his 5 carries for 45 yards, you're talking about 13 carries for 38 yards, under 3 yards per carry. That was actually the real key, because then they couldn't get their play action going. They couldn't get anything else going. So the passing game wasn't as dangerous as what it had been earlier in the season. And our final game here, just shout out to the Los Angeles Rams. A lot of people, only half joking, were saying that they should have forfeited because they were short so many people. Like 3 of their starting offensive linemen, including a 4th one who was their second string right tackle, was also out. And Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, just so many different pieces missing here. It was like, well, hey, maybe we should just forfeit to be able to not put Matthew Stafford at risk. As Dan Hawkins here is saying, the Juwan Jennings game, 11 catches for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. He apparently stepped up for Debo and Kittle combined for that kind of production. And this is one of those games that San Francisco is going to get home and say, how did we lose? Like they were up 10 points with 6 minutes to go, and let the Rams come back, get a stop, touchdown, get a stop, and then get a game-winning field goal with some like really gutsy throws and catches. A huge play by Tutu Atwell, a catch down the sideline that was just amazing. Just a really gutsy win by Stafford and McVay for them being able to pull this out with their mash unit of an offense. So we'll see, where this takes them, but shout out to them. And now the San Francisco 49ers are 1-2. The San Francisco 49ers are the exact same as the Browns, the Giants, the Carolina Panthers, the Panthers and the 49ers, same thing. They're both 1-2 because this is football. This is just how it works. All right, so everybody here, we're watching Sunday Night Football. We'll see what happens here right now as I'm wrapping this up. The Falcons are winning by 1, 14-13. The Chiefs are driving and about to score. Tomorrow night, make sure as soon as you finish up with this, check out the pregame show that the guys over the Air Raid Hour did. Tomorrow, you'll be able to watch a pregame show right beforehand with our friends from the Roundup. Watch Uber Hansen and David Fox, and then afterwards come and join Aaron and I for the postgame show immediately after the show wraps, and then Steve Mathis is going to do a little bit extra afterwards for our West Coast friends for a post-game show after we wrap up here. So thanks for checking out everything we have going on here at Cover One. We appreciate you guys so much. We'll talk more later on this week, but as of now, you've been listening to Greg Thompson. This has been the Greg Thompson Football Show, and we are out.